Greetings fellow Mist Wanderers, my name is Steve Morgan and this is DM of the Mists, covering all things CoS of Strahd and Ravenloft. Despite finishing CoS of Strahd a couple of years ago now, because we've moved on to a wider Ravenloft domain hopping sequel campaign, I still frequent places like the CoS of Strahd subreddit, and there's a Facebook group for CoS of Strahd DMs, and I like to see what people say, offer advice where and when I can. What I've found over the years is somebody will come onto one of those groups and say, oh, this thing happened in my game. And then somebody comes along and says, I hate to be that guy, and it could even be me saying this, but you've made a mistake because that conflicts with the 5th edition rules, for example. And there's arguments, obviously, for, if your players enjoyed it, is it that big a deal? There's the rule of cool and things like that. And once something happens, it might be hard to retcon. That's fine, fair enough, and I agree. But the purpose of this video is if you're early on in running CoS of Strahd or about to run it, hopefully these mistakes that people make are things that you can learn about and try and avoid in your own game. When I do these videos that are lists, I usually use the number 7 homebrew changes I did to CoS of Strahd, 7 easy to miss details, 7 alternative random encounters, but for this one I thought of 8, so I've gone ahead and gone with 8. And I'm not saying any of this out of a sense of superiority. We all make mistakes. There was one where I ran Folkovnia as a domain of dread, and a zombie beholder appeared. One of my players did a magic spell on it that can knock somebody prone. I was like, hey, you've knocked the beholder prone. And then I looked at their stat block afterwards and I was like, they're immune to being prone because they're a floating creature. But, that was a mistake I made. And I don't think I go through the hundreds of sessions I've run of D&D. I think I've probably made at least one mistake in every single one of them. So mistakes happen to all of us. And out of a sense of fairness, the very first one from this list is a mistake I made in my CoS of Strahd game. So here we go. Number 1, Vampire Spawns Spider Climb. So vampire spawns and vampires have an ability called Spider Climb, which means they can climb onto a wall or a ceiling without making an ability check. I mistook this to mean that they could walk on walls and ceilings normally, but they would need a climbing speed for that. So my understanding is in the rules they can climb up onto a wall and a ceiling without, say, doing an athletics check, but they're still walking or climbing at half speed. This was crucial in my game because when my players first met and fought Doru in the village of Barovian underneath the church, I had him try and escape, and he dashed. He was already on a wall, he might have already been on the ceiling, and I just had him dash for the exit, and he did it in 60 feet, when really it should have been 30. Now, if it had been done in 30, my players might have defeated him before he escaped. Because I went ahead and did it 60, he escaped. And then he went to Strahd. Strahd sent him back to the village of Barovia. They had to go back to the village of Barovia to defeat him once and for all. And it was cool and it was epic. But if I played it properly by the rules, it might have been that none of that happened and they defeated him before he left. So it's an important thing to think of and try and remember. Number 2, using things like Hold Person and Charm Person on vampires. This feels very much like, oh, well, actually, it's these rules. But it is. So spells like Hold Person, Charm Person work on humanoids. And despite vampires and vampire spawn basically being humanoid type creatures who walk on their legs and have arms and look like people, they are not technically humanoids. They are technically undead as far as monster types are concerned. So Hold Person, Charm Person wouldn't work on them. Hold Monster, Charm Monster, I think they're called, would do, because they're, that works on broader things, people that aren't just humanoids, other creatures. But because they're undead, it shouldn't work. And I can see this happening where somebody thinks, oh, I'm going to cast Hold Person on Doru, and the DM might just go, yeah, whatever, yeah, let's go with that. But technically, it wouldn't actually work. Number 3, Polymorph on shapechangers. Now, there's quite a few shapechangers in CoS of Strahd. You've got Strahd himself, you've got the werewolves, and you've got Babala Saga. Babala Saga, I think, is one that people forget. It's a shape change. You can change into a swarm of flies, which is pretty cool. And where I think that this trips a lot of people up is Strahd and Babala Saga, despite being shape changers, have access to the spell Polymorph by default. But they couldn't necessarily cast it on themselves. For instance, Strahd turns into a T-Rex, or Babala Saga makes herself become a giant ape, that kind of thing. Or if the players do what I think some monsters do who have access to Polymorph, where they think, oh, I'll turn the tank or the paladin with Smite or whoever's got the Sunsword into a cat. So they're just running around and not being able to do any damage and do any attacks, takes them out of the game for a round or two perhaps. So if your players are thinking, oh, I'm going to cast Polymorph on Strahd, turn him into a cat, that's not going to work. Now, of course, there's nothing stopping someone like Strahd casting Polymorph on Vampire Spawn, which aren't shape changers, despite vampires being shape changers, vampire spawn are not. He could cast Polymorph on one of the brides, one of the consorts, Orhon Rahadin and turn them into a T-Rex. Why not? That'd be fun. Number 4, Daylight and other spells giving sunlight. The spell Daylight doesn't... Actually, I need to be careful saying this because it might change with the new rules coming out. I think the new player's handbook and the new spells. Daylight in the old version, 2014 version of the player's handbook, is not sunlight. It doesn't specify it's sunlight in the description, unlike when it's things like the Holy Symbol of Ravenkind and the Sun Sword. Now in new rules, somebody posted on Reddit, I think they must have gotten access to a sneak peek, I'm not sure, but they posted a picture, a screenshot of the new version of Daylight, and apparently the new version of the Daylight spell does specify that it is sunlight, which, you know, I think there's a bit of an uproar saying, well, that's going to make you play CoS of Strahd with the 2024 rules, and that's going to make CoS of Strahd a lot easier if they can just use a 3rd level spell instead of getting something like the Sun Sword or the Holy Symbol of Ravenkind. But yes, if you're still using the old version of the spell, the version from 2014, it is not sunlight. But I've seen a lot of people say, oh, my character's cast Daylight in the coffin shop and killed all the vampire spawn in there. Number 5, Magic Circle is not instant. There's a spell called Magic Circle which can trap either, say, trap undead, for instance, somebody like Strahd inside a circle they may struggle to get out of, or the opposite, it protects somebody and people can't go into the circle. So somebody could, say, cast it on Irene and protect her from somebody like Strahd trying to get in. Now, it's very easy sometimes when you see a spell and you just think, oh, it's instantaneous casting. Magic Circle actually takes a minute. That's 10 rounds. So it's something that I suppose somebody could cast in preparation or when out of combat, you know, and spend a minute trying to get it working. But cast in combat, it should obviously take 10 rounds and not be straight away. I mention this because Esmeralda and Rictavio / Van Richten have Magic Circle on their spell blocks and their stat blocks, and so they have access to the spells. If they're the fated ally or involved in any capacity, you need to bear that in mind. Number 6, Barovian Sunlight, in quotes, sunlight. If you read early on in the book, it says that sunlight works differently in Barovia. It's, you know, the sky is still lit, but it's so overcast that the sun actually doesn't affect people like Strahd or any vampire spawn walking around in Barovian daytime. But I think that I've seen a few DMs in the past miss this and say, oh, in the coffin shop the vampire spawn couldn't leave and steal the bones and take them away because it was daytime at the time. They'd have to wait till night. Well, no, they can actually still leave and be unaffected. And one of my players, even though they'd seen Strahd in the daytime, I don't know if it's because he forgot or just assumed Strahd was different and some magical element in play, he tried to cast Shatter into the ceiling of the coffin shop to try and get sunlight to hit the vampire spawn, which under normal circumstances, non-Barovian circumstances, probably would have been a very clever move, but in this case it didn't work so well. It wasn't all for nothing though, it meant the Were-Raven was able to swoop in and give a hand, so I kind of gave them that as a sort of, you know, it's a shame he used the turn to try and do that and it didn't work out the way he wanted, but hey, at least something good came out of it that helped them out. Number 7, forgetting that the Martikovs are lycanthropes. I remember reading a story a few months back where somebody panicked because the game they were running, the player who was playing a rogue got into an argument with Danica Martikov, and decided to kill her on the spot and said something like, with sneak attack, rolled over an 8 on the damage and she was killed outright. And understandably, people jumped in saying, she doesn't have 4 HP, she's not a commoner, she's a Were-Raven. And also, you know, if the rogue just had a regular weapon, a non-magical, non-silvered weapon, it wouldn't have even hurt her. Now, it's one of those situations where what's done is done. I think some people, might even be me in the comments, suggested you could retcon it sort of to say she was injured and she faked death and then she comes back. I don't know. But yes, I've seen this at least 3 times now where somebody thinks that the Martikovs are just standard commoners and, you know, if the players try and kill them, they shouldn't be able to unless they've got to use magic or magical items and do a huge blow with, I think, Were-Ravens are 27 HP? 31 HP. That'd have been amazing if I remembered that off the top of my head without just by, you know, not looking at that stat block for a very long time. There is actually a variation of the Were-Raven where they aren't immune to non-magical damage and non-silver damage, but that they regenerate health instead. So just watch out for that. If you're looking at the stat blocks, you might find the other version, not one from CoS of Strahd. And number 8, I'm going to go back to Vampire Spawn now, kind of how I started with talking about their climb speed. It's just generally forgetting about their resistances, their regeneration. It's very... I struggle to run Vampire Spawn in combat because you've got to remember that every round, if they haven't taken radiant damage, they gain, I think it's 10 HP. And They are resistant to non-magical damage, even silvered non-magical damage. So they've got one up on were-ravens and werewolves, in that it basically has to be a magical attack or a magical weapon in order to do the full damage. So not only have you got these people regenerating health if they are not taking radiant damage or in sunlight, but they are also, your players are only doing half the damage to them rounded down instead of doing some, big damage. And then of course they're regenerating the HP as well, so they can be very difficult to take down, especially early on, and especially without magical means. And that's it for this one. Nice and short, shorter probably than some of my other videos. What mistakes do you know of? What mistakes have you seen or done yourself? Feel free to share in the comments. These videos come about from like years of browsing CoS of Strahd subreddit and Facebook group, but there might be some mistakes I'm not even aware of that are pretty common. That'd be quite cool to see, so please do share those if you have them. I've got a bit of non-channel news. I'm about to release my first fantasy novel, very D&D inspired, not so much Ravenloft, but more sort of Forgotten Realms and Honor Amongst Thieves, the recent movie that came out. I'll probably do a quick video explaining that when it's ready, but expect that in the next couple of weeks. And my next videos on the CoS of Strahd front are when to introduce Strahd for the first time. I was going to do that next actually, but then wanted to do this one instead. Should you surprise your players with CoS of Strahd, then I can speak from experience as a player and as a potential DM on that front. And how, this is quite controversial, I'm not a fan of reading the card reading. I'm not a fan of the random approach either. And I'll talk about a nice in-between that people could consider, which also I have got a guide on DM's Guild that can help with that. And the next Ravenloft videos I'm going to do, because as well as CoS of Strahd videos, I do Ravenloft videos. The next one after this is probably going to be recurring minor villains in a domain-hopping Domain of Dread campaign. So not necessarily Dark Lords, but people who can leave their domains and maybe move around and visit other domains. And I want to do my experiences running the island on Markovia, which I didn't treat as a regular domain. My players were able to come and go as they pleased, and they actually visited there 3 times, but very short visits. It was like a session or 2 each time, rather than say, however long CoS of Strahd takes in Barovia. I think they spent 6 months at a game in Falkovnia. Bear in mind that's weekly games, so probably like 15, 20 odd sessions. But yeah, got those coming up as well. Thank you, Mr. Wanderers.